You're right here.
Okay.
Commissioner? Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, good morning. I'm Tom Vilsack, Secretary of Agriculture, and I'm certainly pleased to be here at Alabama A&M University and appreciate all of the folks who are here today. I want to welcome everyone to this joint competition workshop between the Department of Agriculture and the Department of Justice, an historic opportunity for us to listen and to learn. Congressman, good to see you. I want to thank the folks at Alabama A&M University for allowing us to use this facility, and everyone who has provided assistance to us. I also want to recognize several members of the United Food and Commercial Workers, as well as those from the retail, wholesale, and department store unions that are joining us today. This is, as I said, the second in a series of competition workshops we are holding this year to allow us to better understand the issues of most concern and deserve closer attention, and to explore the appropriate role, if any, for antitrust or regulatory enforcement in the agricultural area. In March, we held a workshop on general farmer issues in Ankeny, Iowa, and today we are focusing on competition and contracting practices in the broiler industry, as well as the relationship between producers and companies. On June 25th, we will hold a workshop on dairy in Madison, Wisconsin. We will evaluate competition in livestock markets on August 27th in Fort Collins, Colorado, and we'll discuss margins on December 8th in Washington, D.C. President Obama has provided clear direction that his government should be open and transparent. That's what we hope these workshops are designed to do. We seriously want public dialogue on these very complex issues. As I travel as Secretary of Agriculture across the country, I hear a very consistent theme. Farmers and ranchers and producers are worried about whether there's a future for themselves and their children in agriculture. And we know having a viable market largely determines if such a future will exist. Farmers have the right to know if their markets are fair, competitive, and transparent, especially if they're going to make a significant investment to allow them to get in or to stay in agriculture. At the same time, consumers across the country have the right to know if the food products they are buying are safe and are fairly priced at the grocery store. At the Iowa workshop, we discussed whether there was enough innovation and competition in the seed industry. We also looked at the spot market in hogs, which has become very thin and volatile, and making it more difficult to accurately price hogs. Today, we evaluate the poultry industry, and specifically the broiler portion of the industry. As those in the audience probably well know, in the 1950s and 60s, the poultry industry underwent one of the largest transformations of any sector in agriculture through consolidation and vertical integration. Poultry production is vertically integrated. The company owns the birds, the feed, medications, veterinary services, whereas the growers take on the capital costs of building facilities, helping to pay the fuel costs, and caring for the birds to market weight. Most production is supplied through poultry growing arrangements between the company and growers. In 1963, the top four firms controlled 14% of chicken slaughter. Today, it's roughly 57%. And now it's not uncommon for a grower to have to do business with only one company in their area. Also been increasing controversies between poultry growers and processors, specifically relating to the length of contracts and contract terms. But concentration numbers fail to answer the basic question, which we want to hear from you today. What is needed to have a viable, fair, and competitive marketplace? The issues surrounding the competitiveness in agriculture have been debated for decades, and there's no doubt that they are difficult and complex, which is why this workshop is important and, we believe, long overdue. We continue to seek answers and solutions. The administration is very aware of the concerns that producers have about market concentration, and we've already taken a number of steps. The USDA and the Department of Justice have established the Agricultural Competition Joint Task Force to explore new opportunities to harness each other's expertise, and we'll be developing a new memorandum of understanding that will outline our relationship. These workshops will help inform us as we work on this MOU. The President's budget in the ag area has increased GIPS's funding level to improve enforcement over unfair and deceptive practices in the marketplace. The Department is using these resources to hire attorneys to handle complex competition investigations as well as other violations. The current budget the President has proposed to Congress for 2011 also requests additional funds to hire legal specialists and field investigators to help conduct more than 500 inspections to ensure that the market is fair and above board. We published a final rule in December of 2009 to improve fairness in contracting in the poultry industry. Specifically, this final rule ensures that growers are provided a 90-day notice before a company can terminate their contracts. It also ensures that growers who are building new poultry houses get to see a true written contract on the date the poultry company provides the poultry house specifications, not months later, which could put the grower in a take it or leave it situation. Final rule also spells out that growers have the right to discuss their contracts with their families, their lender, their state or federal agencies, their lawyer, or other growers that contract with the same company. We are also in final clearance for a proposed rule which we intend to issue sometime in mid-June to carry out the requirements of the 2008 Farm Bill that addresses issues of fairness in contracting in livestock in the poultry marketplace. Again, I want to thank you all for attending today. I want to thank the panelists in advance before my introductions of them for their willingness to participate in this workshop and look forward to hearing what they have to say on these very important issues in agriculture. It's now my distinct pleasure to introduce the Attorney General of the United States, Eric Holder. During his impressive career, General Holder has served in the private practice as a U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, as an Associate Judge of the Superior Court of the District of Columbia, and as a Deputy Attorney General. He has worked to investigate and prosecute official corruption on the local, state, and federal level, and he's fully invested in the strong enforcement of our nation's antitrust laws to advance the interests of justice on behalf of the American people. On a personal note, I want to indicate the personal attention the Attorney General has paid to these particular workshops. There are many places that the Attorney General could be today, but he has dedicated himself to coming to these workshops as an indication of his concern and interest. So please welcome, join me in welcoming Attorney General Holder.
Thank you. Well, good morning. Thank you, Secretary Vilsack. It's always good to join with you, and it's good to be here, and it's also good to be out of Washington, D.C. Seated to my left is the Assistant Attorney General for the Antitrust Division in the United States Department of Justice, a woman who has revitalized the Antitrust Division and from whom you'll be hearing later, Christine Varney. You might hear in me a slight New York accent, but it's always great to be in the beautiful state of Alabama. I consider you all my second home. My wife was born and raised by 5 hours south of here in Mobile, Alabama, but this is my first visit to Normal. So I want to thank the city and our hosts at Alabama A&M for welcoming us today and for hosting what I think is a very important workshop. The discussion that we have gathered to begin reflects, I think, a historic collaboration, as Secretary Vilsack said, between the Departments of Justice and Agriculture and leaders from across our nation's agricultural industry. Secretary Vilsack, Assistant Attorney General Varney, and I are committed to improving our understanding of how particular agricultural markets function. That is why we are here. And that's why we've decided to hold a series of 5 workshops across the country to hear from people, to examine the challenges facing America's farmers, growers, and producers. Now, 2 months ago, we kicked off this workshop series in Secretary Vilsack's home state of Iowa. I wonder how that happened, where we focused on the seed industry. That meeting, I think, was a great success. We received very valuable feedback from those who attended and from those who provided written comments. Now, I fully expect that this workshop will be just as useful. Not only do we appreciate your input, quite frankly, we need your input. We need to hear from you. And today our goal is to develop a clearer picture of what competitive issues participants in the poultry market are facing. But we need your perspective. Your insights can help us fulfill our responsibility to take appropriate action to enforce the Packers and Stockyard Act. It will also enable us to be more effective advocates for competition, which is Christine's job. Now, as we begin this important conversation, it is fitting that we've gathered here at Alabama A&M. This university has a very long and a very distinguished tradition of training agricultural leaders, and today is on the cutting edge of industry and industry advancements. In fact, as we speak, university biotechnologists are making strides in the development of an allergy-free peanut. Now, this is something very important to me. I've got 2 children who are allergic to peanuts, and if you can pull this off, I would be able to get peanut butter sandwiches to everybody in my family. But in learning about this, I couldn't help but think about George Washington Carver, who spent his career working on innovations with peanuts at Tuskegee University. Dr. Carver once said, and I quote, "New developments are the products of a creative mind." Well, that is certainly true, but I believe that new developments, and more importantly, progress, are also the product of collaboration. Now, in coming together today, our hope is that we can move forward in meeting our goals to ensure competition, to ensure opportunity and fairness in our agricultural markets. Secretary Vilsack, Assistant Attorney General Varney, and I understand that. As farmers, producers, and industry leaders, we understand that you face a variety of challenges. We know that some of you have concerns about production contracts. Others are worried about consolidation in our poultry markets. Whether you're here to talk about antitrust issues or to raise questions about fair contracting and business practices, we really look forward to hearing from each of you. Now, with your engagement, I believe that we can move closer to answering the question that's at the heart of these workshops. The question of whether competition in today's agricultural industry is as free and is as fair as it should be. And as we work to answer this and to understand why a growing number of American producers and farmers find it increasingly difficult to survive by doing what they have been doing for decades, I want to assure each of you that the Obama administration is committed to protecting competition in a very vigorous manner. This is a top priority for today's Department of Justice. But I recognize that the vigorous enforcement of our antitrust laws, while critical, cannot fully address the concerns of many agricultural industry leaders and stakeholders. That's why we are partnering with the United States Department of Agriculture to benefit from its deep expertise in your industry, and hopefully to share our expertise on the broader regulatory issues that are potentially at play. And that's why our agencies launched the Agriculture Competition Joint Task Force that Secretary Vilsack mentioned. That's also why we're engaging directly with all of you to listen, to learn, and to determine the best ways to ensure fairness and to encourage success. Now, as we evaluate and develop policy, we want to hear from you. And I think that's something that all of us would really stress. We want to hear from you. In fact, when we announced these workshops last year, we also issued a call for your comments and recommendations. And so far, the response has really been tremendous. To date, we have received over 15,000 comments. And I'm grateful that so many of you have contributed to this extraordinary example of government-public engagement at its best. Not only must we keep up this work, we have to expand this work. And together, I believe that we can address the 21st century challenges that the agricultural industry now faces. Now, I'm certain that we can honor and preserve your industry's essential role in our economy, as well as our culture, our livelihood, and our global standing. Your participation here gives me great hope about what we can accomplish together in the days and months ahead. Secretary Vilsack and I look forward to hearing from you and to working with all of you. So thank you so much for welcoming us here today. And as I said, we look forward to hearing from all of you.